What's up, math students? Welcome to AZMerit testing. I know many of you have already experienced the platform with your English and language arts tests, but some of you haven't, and there are some things that are specific just to the math test that we want to touch base on to make sure everyone's comfortable. We'll make this really quick. First thing is, when you go to log into Windows, instead of using your usual username and password, you're going to use one that's specific for AZMerit testing. So the username is AZMerit, A-Z-M-E-R-I-T, and then the password is just password. Once you log in, go ahead and plug in your headphones. Next, before doing anything else, you want to make sure that the volume is turned up on your computer. You can go ahead and turn up the volume all the way. There's an icon in the lower right corner of your screen, and just go ahead and pull that slider all the way up. If it's too loud for you during the test, you can always turn it down during the test, but if your computer sound is off, then you won't be able to proceed. So make sure you do that before doing anything else. Next, double-click on the icon that looks something like this. It's like a star and it says 7.2. It should be a shortcut on your desktop. Go ahead and double click that. Next, you're going to sign into the portal. All that's required for you to sign in is your first name, your SACE number, which is on the testing ticket, the piece of paper that your teacher gave to you, and then your session number. Your session number is unique just to this testing session and it'll be written by your teacher on the whiteboard. Next, you're going to select the test that's appropriate for you. It could be listed by grade or by test. If it's listed by grade, you're going to choose the grade that the class corresponds with, not necessarily the grade that you are in. For example, if you're a freshman taking Algebra 2, the grade you would choose is 11. If you have questions about this, ask your teacher. The math test is in 2 sessions. And session 1 should be the only test that's available when you initially get into the system. If not, go ahead and choose that math test session 1. After you log into the portal, you may be asked for something like this where it says choose your settings. The settings are defaulted to you specifically the way that they should be, so there's no need for you to change any of these settings. As soon as you get to this screen, you just click on select, and then you will be able to begin your test as soon as your teacher approves that you are available to take the test. So it may take a second for your teacher to approve you, and that's okay. Go ahead and wait for your teacher to approve you, and then you may begin. Each test question is numbered, similar to what you see here. And then you'll notice off to the right there's the 3 little kind of menu marks that show you that you could pull down a menu right there for a couple of extra options. If you were to choose that pull down menu, you'll get 3 options. One is tutorial, which will take you back to the tutorial how to use the system, and that's available to you at any time should you need it. Next is notepad, in case you want to make any notes to yourself. You could also write on scratch paper, or you could use this notepad to make notes. Or the third, which is called mark for review. This is in case you want to flag something and come back to it later. If you are not sure of the answer or you don't want to spend too much time, you want to move on to other testing questions, you could mark for review and then come back to that question later. So if I were to mark question 1 for review so that I would flag it and come back to it later, you'll notice at the top of your screen you would have a menu that would look something like this, and where it says questions, next to number 1 it says marked, because that's what that does when you click mark for review, so it'll show you which ones you marked. You can pull down that menu right there next to questions at any time so that you can go back to previous questions. You also have these self-explanatory buttons, back, next, save, pause, and end test. The save button is not really necessary for the math test. You can click save if you'd like to. However, as soon as you click next, whatever work you did on that page will be saved. So you don't have to click save. Once you click next, then your work will be saved on that page. If you were to need to use the restroom at any time, once getting permission from your teacher, you would push the pause button here. And when you return from the restroom, you would have to log back in and wait for approval from your teacher again. That's the procedure that you would do should you need to pause the test. End test should only be marked when you're completely finished with the test, and we'll come back and talk about that in a little bit. But for right now, all you really need to know is you can click Next. You can pull down the questions menu and go back to questions during the testing session. Or if you need to excuse yourself to the restroom after getting permission from your teacher, you would click pause. When you return from the restroom, you would log back in and wait for approval. End test should not be clicked until you're completely finished with the test. One of the menu items that you can click on is for a notepad, as we mentioned earlier. One thing I want to make note of is if you put anything into the notepad, if you want to return to those notes later, you do need to click Save and Close. So earlier we talked about not needing to click Save in between each question, that once you click Next, that'll save your work. That's not necessarily true for the notepad. So again, if you want to return to your notes that you made for yourself in the notepad, make sure you click Save and Close before exiting out of that. In the top right of your screen, you will see a menu kind of like this that will have 4 different options: Calculator, Line Reader, Zoom Out, and Zoom In. Zoom Out and Zoom In is self-explanatory. You probably shouldn't need to use those buttons, but they're there if you need them. Line Reader highlights one line at a time if that would assist you as you're going through reading the questions for the test. And Calculator is available to you on portions of the test where Calculator is allowed if you would like to use it. If you click on Calculator, a calculator should appear that's appropriate for the test that you're taking. In some higher level courses, you might have an option of which type of calculator to use. So one will come up just like this one, and you notice at the top here, there's different versions: regression, graphing, and scientific. Okay, for most courses, only certain calculators will pop up and you won't need to worry about that. If you're in a higher level course and you click on Calculator and, for example, it defaults to a calculator that you wouldn't want to use, let's say in this example, if you wanted to use the scientific mode, you would just come over here and click Scientific, and let's see what that would look like. Okay, so this is the same calculator, but just after clicking Scientific, it would give you a different version. So just be aware, if you're going to use a calculator, make sure that you're in the correct mode before you get working. Once you reach the end of the test, that would be the only time that you would click on the stop button that we referred to earlier. You will get a message that looks something like this, where it tells you you've reached the end of the test. Do you really want to continue, or do you want to keep working on your test? Once you exit out of your test, you will not be able to return to it. So make sure that if you're going to end your test, that you really are finished, because you will not be able to return to it. If I felt like I was finished with the test at this time, I would click yes. If I wasn't, obviously I would click no. Let's pretend like I was finished with this test. Let's click yes and see what it would look like. Okay, you'll notice you'll have another prompt where it says you've reached the end of the test. And then it gives you kind of a graphic of all the questions that were available. All the questions that were answered should be blank, like 5, 9, 2, 6, 10, etc. You'll notice the questions over here, like the 13, 17, and up to 28, have that exclamation, meaning I did not put any work or any answer on that page. And so that's just alerting me that if I'm not finished, I didn't mark anything, I might want to go back to those questions and answer them. If that was the case, I would just click on the question. Let's say I wanted to click on 14. I would just click on 14. It would take me back to question 14. And then when I was finished with the test, again, I'd go through the same process, pushing stop, etc., and I'd get the same dialogues. Notice, remember that we flagged question 1, that we wanted to come back to it. This little flag right here is just showing me, hey, remember you wanted to go back and look at number 1 again. Same thing with number 8, just so you can see what that kind of looks like, okay? You don't want to spend too much time on any one question. If you feel like there's not a good chance that you're going to be able to figure it out, just flag it for review and move on. If there's time remaining at the end and you want to go back and look at it again, that's great. Don't get too stressed out over a question that you're not sure how to do. Good testing strategy would be to mark it, move on, and then come back later. Once you have satisfied your requirements and you've answered every question, so there's no exclamation points, and you have reviewed each of the questions that you flagged, then you would click down here where it says Submit Test. And again, it's giving me a prompt. Are you sure you want to submit this test? Again, that's because once you end the test, you will not be able to return to it, even if you are in extended time. So once you click that stop button and say, yes, I'm submitting this test, you will not be able to return to it. The math test has two parts. Once you finish test 1, you may immediately continue on to test 2. In the event that you require extended time, you would simply pause your test and then please log out of the secure browser. Also, if you finish and submit your test, please log out of the secure browser. If you do not log out of your secure browser, you will possibly have a delay when you start your extended time session. If you require extended time, please pause your test and then log out of the secure browser, and your teacher will give you further instructions. Good luck, and as always, do your best.